I've always hated tight spaces. Elevators, basements, tiny rooms with low ceilings, anything that felt like the walls might close in. So when I moved into my one-bedroom apartment downtown, I made sure to pick the unit with the biggest living room. High ceilings, big window, lots of light. It wasn't perfect, nothing ever is, but it felt safe enough, comfortable, open, until the wall started breathing. At first I didn't even notice it. You wouldn't. It was so subtle. I'd sit on the couch sketching or half watching TV, and something would catch the corner of my eye. A slow, rhythmic movement. Like the room had a pulse. I thought it was just the light from the street shifting through the window blinds, but it wasn't. One night, a week after the first flicker of weirdness, I was sitting there with a glass of wine, just staring at the blank canvas I'd been avoiding. The air felt heavy, like before a thunderstorm. I wasn't thinking about anything in particular, just zoned out. Then I saw it. The wall moved, not like cracking paint or a foundation settling. It moved, in, outside, like it was breathing. I blinked and sat up. It stopped. I waited. Nothing. I got off the couch and walked toward it, my heart thudding a little harder than I'd admit. I put my hand on it. Warm. It shouldn't have been warm. The wall was supposed to be cold, like plaster always is, but it was warm and damp, like skin. I yanked my hand back. The spot where my palm had rested looked darker now, slightly wet. I didn't sleep well that night. The next morning, I told myself it was a dream, or a trick of the mind. Maybe I had a fever. Maybe the wine got to me. But when I went to touch the wall again, it was dry, normal, solid, no pulse, no heat. I knocked on it just to prove a point to myself. Hollow, same as always. Still, I started spending more time in the bedroom. I told myself it was just quieter in there, better for work. But deep down, I just didn't want to be around that wall. I thought it was over. For a few days, things felt normal again. Then, the painting started to change. It was just a rough draft of a figure study, something I'd started and left alone for weeks. But when I walked into the living room one morning, the colors were darker. The outline of the figure had shifted. I thought maybe I had forgotten what I painted. That seemed more reasonable than the alternative. But it kept happening. Every night, a little more. The lines twisted. Eyes appeared where there hadn't been any. The shape stretched along the canvas like it was trying to escape the frame, and behind the canvas, the wall pulsed. Slowly, steadily, breathing. That night, I dreamt I was inside a mouth. Not a monster's mouth, something worse. A quiet, wet, endless space. I couldn't see the teeth, but I felt them. The walls pressed in on me like soft gums, and a slow, wet breath ran over my face. When I woke up, the painting was ruined. It looked like it had been soaked from the back. The image was warped and smeared, like something underneath the canvas had been pushing outward. I sat in front of it for hours. I didn't cry. I just watched it. Waiting. And the wall kept breathing. I tried to convince myself that it was stress, that I'd been alone too long in this place, that I needed a break, sunlight, people. I told myself artists get like this sometimes, too caught up in their own heads. I said it out loud one morning, pacing the kitchen like a mad woman. It's just isolation, I said. Too many hours painting. I need to touch grass. But even as I said it, I could hear the sound. It was faint, like a draft curling through insulation, but it wasn't the wind. It was a breath. Slow, wet, intimate. I froze, my coffee cup halfway to my lips. The sigh came again, but this time, it carried something else. My name. Mara. I dropped the mug. It shattered across the tile, but I didn't even flinch. I just stared at the living room. The sound had come from inside the wall. I walked over, my feet crunching through ceramic shards. The wall was still, dry, but something about the paint had changed. Cracks that hadn't been there before ran in thin, winding trails like veins, and if I stared at them long enough, they seemed to move. I pressed my ear against the wall. Nothing. Then, just as I started to pull away, I heard it again. Right next to my ear, a whisper. "Come closer." I reeled back, heart hammering, chest tight. I almost vomited. I backed out of the living room and closed the door like that would keep it in, like walls could trap whatever this was. That night, I tried to sleep in the bedroom, but the breathing followed. It was quieter, like it was coming from farther away, muffled by drywall and distance, but it was there. I could feel it through the mattress, a soft, rhythmic push, like I was lying on lungs. The next morning, I called Danny. Danny and I had been friends for years, ever since art school. She was practical, funny, and allergic to anything supernatural, which is probably why I didn't tell her everything. You ever have your place settle weird? Like the walls creak or feel off? What, like ghost stuff? She laughed. Jesus, Mara, did you finally break your brain in that shoebox apartment? No, seriously, it's like the wall is alive. There was a long pause. I could practically hear her trying not to tell me I sounded crazy. Mold can mess with your head, she said finally. Black mold. Makes people hallucinate. Smell anything weird? You should get a guy to come check it. I nodded even though she couldn't see me. Yeah, maybe. I'll look into it. In the meantime, she said softer now, come stay here for a night or two. Just reset your head. I agreed, but I didn't go. Something about leaving felt wrong. Like if I left it alone, the wall might grow angry. Or worse, curious. That night, I watched it. Sat across from it with all the lights on, just staring. The cracks pulsed, one widened, and I swear to God, there was something behind it. Wet, round, glimmering, an eye. I didn't sleep. In the morning, the cracks were gone, like the wall had healed. But now, I knew it was watching me. I started covering the wall, first with a sheet, then a heavy old tapestry I'd used as a backdrop for an exhibit years ago. I hammered it in tight, hiding every inch. It made me feel better for a day, maybe less. Because by the second night, the fabric moved. I was sitting on the floor, sketch pad in my lap, when I saw it shift, like something underneath was breathing against it. The nails popped out one by one, slow and soft, like fingers unbuttoning a shirt. The tapestry sagged, then dropped to the floor. The wall behind it was different. The cracks were deeper now, wider. I could see a pinkish glow pulsing beneath the surface, like light through flesh. Some of the cracks had tiny black points inside. Eyes, I realized. Lots of them. Watching. I didn't scream. I just sat there, frozen, the pencil shaking in my hand. Then the wall spoke. Not aloud, not like a person. It was like the voice bloomed inside my head, moist and low, and impossibly close. You're inside me. I bolted, grabbed my keys, shoved on my shoes, and ran out the door. I didn't care that it was past midnight. I just ran until I hit the street, then hailed the first cab I saw. I went to Danny's. She opened the door, half asleep and confused, but when she saw my face, she sobered up quick. Jesus, Mara, you okay? What happened? I can't be there. The wall, it's not a wall. It's alive. It talks. It watches. To her credit, she didn't laugh. She didn't call me nuts or tell me to sleep it off. She just helped me inside, gave me tea, and sat with me while I cried for the first time in years. You don't have to go back, she said. We'll figure it out. Maybe there's something in the foundation, or hell, we'll call a priest if we have to. But I did go back. I had to. My paints were there. My canvases. My work. It sounds stupid, but art was the only thing that kept me tethered. If I gave that up, I'd fall apart. So the next afternoon, I went back. The apartment felt calmer, still, like whatever lived in the wall was sleeping. I didn't speak, didn't even breathe too loud. Just grabbed my brushes, my good set of oils, and a few blank canvases. But before I could leave, I glanced back at the wall. The cracks had formed a shape. It was my silhouette, no question. Same curve of the neck, same slope of my shoulders. The outline was traced in dark, wet veins, and at the center, right where the heart would be, one of the eyes blinked. I left without taking anything else. That night at Danny's, I had the dream again, the mouth. Only this time, it wasn't just breath I felt. The walls closed in tighter, and I realized they were soft for a reason. They were tissue, muscle, and I was being swallowed. I woke up screaming. Danny tried to calm me down, but I couldn't speak. I just pointed at my chest. There, right over my heart, was a damp pink handprint, the same size as mine. I didn't go back to my apartment after that, not for days. Danny let me crash in her guest room, and I tried to pretend like the world was normal again. I even started painting on her balcony, small stuff, watercolors mostly. But everything I made came out wrong, twisted. My hands would start sketching something harmless, and by the time I realized, the paper was full of mouths, walls, eyes. Danny noticed. She didn't say much, but one morning she slid a pamphlet across the table. A therapist, someone who worked with people recovering from trauma, grief, even psychosis. I nodded like I'd consider it. But I didn't call, because I knew I wasn't crazy, not in the way people thought. I wasn't hallucinating. I hadn't cracked. Something had followed me. The proof was in my chest, the faint outline of a handprint still visible every time I stepped out of a hot shower. Faint, pink, not quite gone. Then came the texts. The first one showed up around 3 a.m. I woke up to the vibration on Danny's nightstand. Unknown number. Just one word. Home. The second night, it sent a picture. I opened it, and my blood turned to ice. It was a photo of my living room wall, but it wasn't the same anymore. It had split open, gaping. The inside looked like a throat, lined with wet muscle and slick folds of flesh. Something pale dangled from within. A rib. I dropped the phone, nearly threw it out the window. By the third night, I couldn't sleep at all. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard my name whispered from inside Danny's guest room walls. The voice didn't belong here. It wasn't part of this space, but it was trying to be. You're still mine. The next morning, Danny found me sitting on the floor in the corner, hugging my knees. I hadn't slept. I hadn't moved all night. "Mara," she said gently, crouching beside me, "I think you need serious help, not just a therapist. Maybe a hospital, just for a little while." "I'm not sick," I whispered. "I'm haunted." She gave me a look I couldn't read. Pity, fear. She didn't press, just left me alone for the day. That night I packed a bag. I didn't even leave a note. I went back to the apartment. It was like stepping into a wound. The air was humid, heavy. The walls seemed to pulse in rhythm with my heartbeat. I walked slowly to the living room. The wall was breathing again. But now it wasn't trying to hide. It moved openly, rising and falling, slow and deliberate, like it was sleeping and dreaming at the same time. I touched it. It was warm, not like sunlight, more like body heat. The eye opened, and it cried. A thick pink tear slid down the wall's surface. Where it touched my hand, it burned. Not like fire, more like a memory. My childhood home, my mother's voice, the smell of turpentine from my first studio. All of it, flooding back at once. It was unbearable. The wall spoke again, only this time, it wasn't just a voice. It was my voice. Stay, we're not done. And somehow, I wasn't afraid. Not yet. The next few days blurred. I stopped marking time. I ate when I remembered. Slept when I couldn't stand anymore. The apartment became something else. Less a home, more like a living organism. The walls were always warm now, always subtly shifting. The floor creaked even when I stood still. And the air smelled like something old, damp, like earth that hadn't seen light in centuries. I painted again, not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't help it. My hands worked without me. Huge canvases, bigger than anything I'd made before, covered in colors I couldn't name and shapes I didn't understand. Faces without mouths, mouths without eyes. Strange doorways that twisted inward forever. And I began to hear the wall speak more often. It no longer whispered. It conversed. "You remember now," it said one night. I sat cross-legged on the floor, staring up at the largest eye, right above my old TV stand. It blinked slowly, like it was half asleep. "Remember what?" I asked. "Before." "Before what?" "Before you were Mara." My stomach turned. That wasn't the first time it said something like that, but it was the first time I answered. Sometimes the wall called me other names. Names I didn't recognize, but that stirred something deep in my chest. One night it called me Marish, and I nearly collapsed. I don't know why that word broke me, but I curled up in bed shaking like I'd just been struck. I stopped calling Danny, stopped answering her texts. I think she came by once. I heard knocking, frantic and fast, but I couldn't open the door. The wall didn't want her in, and deep down, I didn't either, because a part of me was starting to believe it, that this was where I belonged. Then came the painting. It showed up on my easel one morning. I didn't remember making it. I don't think I did. It was me, standing in front of the wall, hands pressed flat against it, my skin melting into the surface like wax. My eyes were gone, just hollow sockets spilling with dark paint. The wall behind me pulsed like a giant lung, and underneath, scrawled in thick brushstrokes, was a sentence: "You were always meant to return." I don't remember falling asleep, but I woke up on the floor, cold and soaked in sweat. My back ached, and when I looked in the mirror, I found thin red lines stretching down my spine, like finger marks, like something had held me while I slept. That night, I locked every door and window, sat in the hallway with a knife. I wasn't sure if I meant to use it on something else, or on myself. Just knowing it was there made me feel like I still had a choice. The wall didn't like that. It began to scream, not loud, not all at once, but a low, constant sound, like someone sobbing into the drywall. The eyes wept black streaks. The heat in the apartment climbed so high I thought the paint might peel from the ceiling. I screamed back, "What do you want from me?" And the wall answered, "We want you whole." I didn't sleep after that. I just sat, shaking, staring into the corners of the room as they breathed in and out, like something just beneath the plaster was learning how to move again. And I knew. I was running out of time. I lasted 3 more days before something snapped. It wasn't the wall that broke me. It was the silence. After all the groaning, all the whispered names, all the breathy sighs against my skin, it just stopped, like it didn't need to convince me anymore, like it was waiting. That silence hollowed me out. I moved through the apartment like I was underwater, couldn't eat, barely drank. I'd lost weight. My cheekbones stuck out like knives. My fingers trembled constantly. But worst of all, my art stopped. The canvas remained blank. I tried to paint, I really did, but every stroke felt wrong. The colors wouldn't mix right. My hand jerked, like something else was guiding it just off center. Like the wall was punishing me for trying to express something it didn't approve of. Then, on the fourth night, I heard her. "Mara?" It was Danny. Not at the door. Not outside. Inside. I spun around. The apartment was dark except for the faint reddish glow that came from the walls now. Everything had a pulsing tint, like I lived inside a living organ. "Danny?" I whispered. "Mara, open the door." But there was no door. Not anymore. Where the front door had been was now a flat stretch of breathing drywall. I reached out and touched it. It twitched like a muscle. "Help me," Danny's voice said. It was wrong. Slightly too slow, echoed, like it was passing through water. "Where are you?" I shouted. Then I saw it. Her face. Just a suggestion of it. Pressed behind the wall like something trapped under ice. Mouth open in a silent scream. Eyes wide, full of horror. "Mara, please," she begged. I stumbled back, heart pounding. "What did you do to her?" The wall pulsed. A groan rolled through it like a yawn. "She was never part of us," it said, "but she walked too close." I don't know what I was thinking. Maybe I thought I could cut her out. Maybe I thought I could save someone from this nightmare. I grabbed the knife again, the same one from before, and charged the wall. I stabbed it. It bled. Thick, black fluid oozed down like tar. The wall screamed. A high, bone-shattering pitch that knocked me back. The eyes opened. All of them. Dozens. Maybe hundreds. Not just on that wall, but every surface. The floor, the ceiling, the furniture, even my own arms. I looked down and saw one blinking on my wrist, another on my thigh. I screamed louder than I ever had, and then it stopped. The eyes closed. The blood dried instantly, and Danny was gone. The knife lay at my feet, clean. I was alone again. Except I knew that wasn't true. I could feel it inside me now. The wall wasn't out there anymore. It was in me, pressing against my ribs, whispering from behind my eyes. That night, I dreamed of a room with no walls at all, just an endless stretch of flesh. I walked for hours, days maybe, as a soft voice hummed lullabies I somehow remembered from childhood, but I never learned them. When I woke, there was paint on my hands. I hadn't picked up a brush. On the canvas was a new painting. Me again, but different this time. I was smiling. The wall behind me was gone, but my body was full of holes, and through those holes were eyes. So many eyes. I didn't cry. I just sat and stared, because part of me liked it. I didn't leave the apartment again, not because I didn't want to, because I couldn't. The door was gone for good. So were the windows. I tried smashing them with furniture, with a hammer, with my own fists once, but the glass never broke. It was like hitting the surface of a pond, software, cold. It rippled, shimmered, and then returned to stillness. I still remember the sound it made when I screamed, dull, like my voice was being swallowed mid-air. Time got slippery. I stopped counting days. I'd wake up covered in paint I didn't remember using. The canvases filled up on their own. Always the same twisted motifs. People with missing mouths, homes with teeth, portraits of me with my chest peeled open and something crawling out. Sometimes I'd catch myself mid-conversation, answering a question I didn't hear. Sometimes I'd find notes in my own handwriting that I didn't write. Let it in. Don't resist. You were always part of the structure. I tried burning them. The wall grew more. Eventually, I gave up fighting. That part of me, the Mara that still wanted to escape, it got quieter. I started speaking back when the wall whispered. Not always out loud, sometimes just in thought. I'd close my eyes, and it would answer questions I never meant to ask. Where did it come from? What does it want? The answers didn't make sense. Or maybe they made too much sense. things about thresholds between flesh and stone, consciousness that needed vessels, and how I had always been a suitable foundation, that my fear, my claustrophobia, had made me pliable, that I had been chosen not in spite of it, but because of it. "You are the artist," it said once. "You reshape the world. Now let the world reshape you." I should have been terrified. Instead, I felt calm. Then came the final night. I woke up to the entire apartment breathing in sync with me. Inhale, walls pulled back. Exhale, they pressed in. The rhythm felt maternal, like a heartbeat in the womb, a soft, wet, all-consuming embrace. I walked to the living room. My paintings were gone. Instead, the wall had grown over everything, forming a smooth surface. And on it, painted in what looked like blood and bone and something that shimmered like tears, was a doorway, an actual door, not one I remembered. This one was too tall, too narrow, a warped arch, and from behind it, I heard myself breathing. Not someone else. Me. I stepped toward it. My hand trembled, but it didn't stop. I opened the door. Inside was a room, just like mine used to be. Same couch, same shelves, same old coffee mug on the table. But in the center stood a woman. Me. But her skin was pale like plaster. Her eyes were hollow, and where her mouth should have been was just another eye. She reached out a hand. "This is where it ends," she said. The voice came from inside my skull. "What happens if I step in?" I asked. "You finish becoming. And if I walk away?" She tilted her head. The eye on her mouth blinked. "There is no away. There never was." I don't know why I took her hand. Maybe because I was tired. Maybe because I finally understood what the wall had been showing me. I wasn't trapped. I was the trap. When I stepped through, everything went quiet. Warm. Still. Like being underwater forever. I think I'm still there now. Sometimes, late at night, I feel people walking past me. Their footsteps vibrate through the floors. Some stop, knock, try the handle. They don't know I'm behind the wall, waiting, breathing. Have you ever felt like a place remembers you, even before you move in? Would you step through that final door? If this story crawled under your skin like it did mine, leave a comment and let me know what you think it all means. And if you enjoy psychological horror with a twist of the surreal, make sure you subscribe. You don't want to miss what's behind the next wall.